Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
All right, great. Wonderful, Karen. Love you. Yeah, I've been knowing you for nearly 25 years.
That's right, my friend. And you are looking better than them.
You can come any Sunday you want. That's great. Make me feel good. Well, there is an outline in the bulletin, if you will go ahead and get that. We're going to be spending several Sundays talking about relationships, marriage, the family, our relationships to our friends and the people we work with, our relationship to God. This message is going to focus on the statement, why marriage is still relevant. And before we get into biblical reasons, I think it's important for us to have or to take a realistic view of marriage in our society today. In Hebrews 13:4, it says, marriage should be honored by everyone, and husband and wife should keep their marriage pure. Regardless of your marital status, we are to honor the covenant of marriage. And when we honor the traditional institution of marriage, our country will be morally stronger. We will be better as a whole because of it. Sadly, marriage is no longer honored by everyone in our society. Marriage is dismissed by many as an archaic, irrelevant institution. So I have 3 quotes from 2 articles that I want to share with you. The first article is entitled, How Love Has Transcended the Institution of Marriage. The point of this article is that human beings are always going to love because it's just a part of our DNA, it's just a part of who we are. However, love may not always be expressed within the institution of marriage. It depends on the times and how culture is viewing marriage. So quote number 1, nowadays, many believe marriage to be a rather archaic concept, one that no longer fills a cultural void. Notice a cultural void. People's ideals have shifted, and a culture that was once focused on family and togetherness now revolves around the concept of independence. And I believe culturally that that last sentence is true. A generation or 2 ago, there was more of a cultural focus on family and marriage and togetherness, even reflected in TV shows and movies. You go back in the late 60s, 69, 1974, there was the Brady Bunch, followed by Dick Van Patten, and 8 is enough. But before all of that, there was the movie, have you seen the original movie, Cheaper by the Dozen? You know, with the dozen children. Today, more, not so much of an emphasis on family as much as there is on independence. Quote number 2, if you aren't going to marry for profit, I like that. Sometimes people marry for profit. Then you will marry for happiness. This, however, brings another problem. The current dominant view on marriage is that it leads to tension within the relationship, leading to a separation and much unhappiness. So the point is that if you're going to marry for happiness, you may not find happiness because marriage is going to create a lot of tension. So if you want to avoid tension, don't marry at all, then you won't ever have to get a divorce. So that's how love has transcended the institution of marriage. That's the article. We're getting a cultural view, and then we're going to get a biblical view. We're not going to leave it with any of this. The second article is entitled Marriage, Attractive, Archaic, or Irrelevant. What I found interesting about this secular article, a non-religious article, I thought they were very honest. I thought that they made some brutally honest assessments in this statement, this quote that I'm going to read to you. While in years gone by, girls may have dreamed about a lavish wedding day and prepared their lives as wives, more women today are claiming their independence and dreaming of professional and academic fame, unimpeded by any commitment to a spouse. A number of factors have contributed to the changing view of marriage, which is more prevalent among young people and professionals. These include urbanization, and this is where I think they're really honest, a breakdown of moral values, I find that to be an interesting statement in a non-religious article, and an increase in promiscuity, that's sexual immorality, I find that to be interesting. And the scarred perspectives of those adults who may have survived the divorce of their parents. Gone are the days of marriages till death do us part, regardless of the circumstances. So that is a cultural perspective on marriage. And we know that recently our society has redefined marriage legally as more than just a man and a woman. That is only one legal combination. As Christians, we cannot assume that everybody has a basic traditional understanding of morality and marriage. Now, maybe living in the South, we're blessed. Pew Research, the company called Pew Research, they said Alabama, this was earlier this year, that Alabama is the most religious of the 50 states. So I think we're blessed by being able to live in the state of Alabama, at least from a religious perspective. A lot of places you go, people just don't have a basic traditional understanding of morality and marriage. There are many cultural misconceptions and myths about marriage. Let me share with you one myth. This is the myth. Marriage is the source of all of my problems. I didn't have any problems until I got married. That is not true. That is a misconception. That is a myth. The truth is that marriage does not create all of your problems, and marriage does not solve all of your problems. That marriage has a tendency to reveal characteristics that may have been hidden when you were single. Fear, perfectionism, desire for control, and manipulative behavior. When you were single, you may have been fearful, you may be a perfectionist, you may desire control, you may be manipulative, but nobody's paying any attention to you because you're by yourself. And then you get married, and within the relationship of marriage, these things come to the surface and have to be dealt with. So that's culture. That's the cultural view. Now we're going to pivot. As Christians, we celebrate marriage, and we understand that God created marriage with designed functions in mind. And to us, as Christians, the institution of marriage is important and will always be important for at least these 6 biblical reasons. These are not the only reasons. There's more biblical reasons and there are other reasons, but these are 6 reasons a marriage is important to us. Number 1, God created marriage for the physical, emotional, and spiritual connection of men and women. God created marriage for the physical, emotional, and spiritual connection of men and women. So take a look at this passage. This is 1 Corinthians 11. In the Lord, however, woman is not interdependent of man, nor is man independent of woman. For as woman came from man, so also man is born of woman. But everything comes from God. Now this is not a marriage passage, and I'm not trying to present this as a marriage passage. This has nothing to do with marriage. It is in the context of the relationship of men and women in the public assembly of the church and how women should relate to customs such as the covering of their head. But beyond the context, there is an important principle in this passage. And that is, in God's creation of human beings, male and female, there is an interdependence on one another. That's just the created order of how things are. In Genesis 2:18, this is in the Garden of Eden. And the Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a companion who will help him." There is no area where companionship is on the level of a man and a woman who are committed to each other for the rest of their lives. Marriage is in a relational class all by itself, right? All by itself. And we can talk about other relationships, and that's fine. But there's no relationship quite like marriage. So in Mark 10, some people came to Jesus with some questions about marriage. And oftentimes when we read this text, and I didn't put all of it in, we have a tendency to focus more on the divorce part. You know, what is divorce? What is what would be called maybe a scriptural divorce? And there are learned men and women in our fellowship who have high degrees who disagree on some of these issues, which won't be resolved, by the way. But in our discussion of these other issues, what we do oftentimes is overlook the beautiful statements that Jesus does make about marriage. So this is Mark 10 and verse 6. Jesus speaking. But God's plan was seen from the beginning of creation. Because they've been asking him, for what reason can we put away our wives? And they're all bent out of shape on what they can do to put away their wives. But God's plan has been seen from the beginning of creation, for he made them male and female. This explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united into one. Since they are no longer two but one, let no one separate them, for God has joined them together. Now when you get to looking at this closely, he makes three very beautiful statements about marriage. Number one, marriage is God's plan, not a human plan. It's God's plan. Marriage is not a human invention that evolved from men being lonely in their caves after hunting buffalo. Now, I know it's a little funny, but that's what the evolutionists want us to believe. That marriage was something that evolved over time. And so, it may have happened something like this. I'm a cave guy, and we'll assume I had a gun. Okay, they probably didn't have guns way back when. And I'm out here living in my cave all alone, and here I go out. I'm out hunting. Boom! I just shot a buffalo. And I go down here and I get the buffalo. Oh, man, I'm having to pull this thing all the way into my cave. Whew! Man, I am so wore out after hunting buffalo. I don't want to skin it. I don't want to cook it. I just want to watch football. And I just go, oh man, I've been out here. So I think I'm just going to go over here in my chair, and having about that time a female cave woman comes by. And he goes, whoa, boom, baby. He says, come on over here, sweetie. And she comes on over there and he says, hey, I tell you what, if you will skin the buffalo and cook it, then I will hunt for you. You cook for me, I hunt for you. And she said, that sounds like a good idea. And then she moves her things from her cave to his cave. And that's how men and women first got together. And I know it's a little bit exaggerated, but that's what we're supposed to believe in evolution. Okay? It happens something like that. As Christians, we know that marriage was God's plan from the very beginning. This is not a human invention. It's not something people came up with one day. Number 2, marriage, second statement that Jesus made, is marriage is between a man and a woman. Male and female. For New Testament Christians, that's the final word. Settled. Culture can do whatever it wants. Government can do whatever it wants. But for us, it is settled. There's only one legitimate combination. Man and woman, that's the final word. And then 3, marriage was meant to be permanent. It says, let no one separate them, for God has joined them together. Now, you and I as Christians may look at this and say, well, okay, Bruce, well, what's your point? Do you realize how radical this is in today's culture? This is so radical that marriage is God's plan, that marriage is just for a man and a woman, and that marriage is supposed to be permanent. That's radical by today's cultural standards. So I've performed a number of wedding ceremonies. And I like it when the couple writes their own marriage vows and they put personal statements in there. It's very sweet. I like it. But there can sometimes be a downside. The downside is that God often gets left out of the vows. It goes like something like this. And here they are, standing right here. Here they are. Okay. I will love you as long as the sun shines. And I'm standing there and I'm thinking, what are you going to do tomorrow when it rains? I will love you because you make me feel so good. And I'm thinking, what are you going to do when they do something stupid and don't make you feel good? I love you because you are so beautiful. And I'm thinking, and what are you going to do when the beauty fades? Did you know I was thinking all of those things? You see, a lot of relationships are built on, I will love you as long as the sun shines, you make me feel good, you're beautiful. Marriage today is viewed by many people as a 36-month lease on a car. Do some of you lease? A few of you lease? No. Okay. If it's a 36-month lease, during the lease, the entire time, the car probably is under warranty. And if something goes really bad with the car, you get upset about it, but you don't get completely bent out of shape because you know you're going to turn it in. And then it's going to be somebody else's problem to deal with. It could be the dealer's problem to deal with. So God created marriage for the physical, emotional, and spiritual connection of men and women. And when it's done right, you can get through anything. Number 2, God created marriage for the multiplication of the human race. I don't even know if I need to comment on this one. What is there really to say about this? This is Genesis 1:27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply." This was the first command God gave the human race, and it is the only commandment given by God that humanity has actually been able to keep. For the most part. For the most part. Some countries are slowly dying, though, because the death rate's higher than the birth rate, like Japan, for example. They say that they may only last a few more 100 years unless they start having more babies. 3, God created marriage for the protection and moral training of children. Did you know children can't raise themselves on their own? So God created marriage for the protection and moral training of children. Children grow emotionally healthier in a stable family with a mom and dad. So here's a quote from a lady who has a marriage course. Marriage is important because it's what children look at as the relationship between their mom and dad. They see what love is about. They see what commitment is about in practice. And it's forming their thinking all the time. And the world is either safe or unsafe according to what they see in their parents' marriage. Studies show, and what I'm going to share with you, I've given you the 3 sources that this is coming from on your outline. You see the 3 references? I have given you the information. So I want you to know that a lot of times ministers, they give out things from the pulpit, but they really can't verify it. And so stuff gets to circulating that's really not true. It's just anecdotal. So I want to at least share with you my sources so that you can say, well, I agree or don't agree with what this study says. Studies show that children who grow up without 2 parents, that is, they're growing up in single-family homes, which comprise 37% of the homes in Mobile County, which is the largest number of single-parent-led homes in the state. Those who grow up without 2 parents, they have lower rates of marriage. When they do marry, they have higher rates of divorce. They are less educated, more likely to go to prison, more likely to live in poverty. Men and women who marry and stay married accumulate more wealth. Now, I'm not talking about 401ks and pensions that you may be given for service, but just between them, they create more assets because of their being together. Now, here's why I said all of this. This is the application. When we do marriage God's way, it generally works out better financially, socially, and spiritually. God's way. Generally. There are going to be exceptions. In Proverbs 14:26, it says, "He who fears the Lord has a secure fortress, and for his children it will be a refuge." Every child needs a place of refuge and protection. Children do not need to be worried every day. I wonder if Dad is coming home tonight. I wonder if Dad is going to be drunk tonight. I wonder if Mom is going to make it back. Children don't need that. Couples used to say, "We are staying together for the children." Actually, a very good statement. Very good statement. It's a sacrificial statement. And what they're saying is, there's some differences between Mom and Dad, but we're willing to overlook those for the greater good of our family. It was a great statement. Today, people laugh at that statement because you have to do what is best for you right now in today's narcissistic society. So I have a quote from Plato. Can Plato in 300 BC, can he tell us anything meaningful? I've always wondered, in 300 BC, was there any history to study? What did they study in their history courses at school in 300 BC? This is what he said. He was the classic Greek philosopher. No man should bring children into the world who is unwilling to persevere to the end in their nurture and education. Great statement. In marriage, doing what you think is best for you and focusing only on yourself probably isn't going to bring you any of the happiness that you're looking for. Did you get that, or do I need to? You all look like you got it. Okay. Well, that brings us to today's funny wedding names. Okay, now, these are actual public announcements of engaged couples. I don't know if you can see it. This is where their last names come together, and it's really funny. Okay, this is the Party More wedding. Party More. How is that on your scale? I thought it was hilarious. The Party More. The More Bacon. The More Bacon wedding. How would you like to be a part of the More Bacon? Okay. What's this next one? The Cannon Bottom. The Cannon Bottom wedding. Cannon Bottom. The Fang Dang. This is the Fang Dang. Okay. The Flint Stone. The Flint Stone wedding. This is the funky. It's funky, man. It's like 1972 all over again. It's the funky. Now let me say this. This is the Go and Get Her. Man, let me tell you, you gotta go and get her. Go and get her. This one is the Party Hard wedding. This is the Party Hard wedding. Okay. The Looney Ward. The Looney Ward wedding. Looks like a very happy couple. The Looney Ward. The Looney Ward wedding. The Macon Peoples. Well, be fruitful and multiply, he said in Genesis 1. So they're going to be making people. The McDonald Burger. McDonald Burger. These are real. These are not made up. The More Dumber. The More Dumber wedding. The More Dumber. The Poor Sack wedding. The Stolen Ford. Bring my truck back. This is the Stolen Ford wedding. Okay, the Went Attaway. Went Attaway wedding. Went Attaway. Okay, now these are not weddings. This is a wedding anniversary. It says Agony 50 years. Their last name is Agony. It looks like they've been in agony for 50 years. Their last name is Agony. All right. Okay. This is Mr. and Mrs. Dig Coffin. Celebrate their golden wedding anniversary. Their last name is Coffin. His first name is Dig. Dig Coffin. Now, do you know the parents did that on purpose? Okay, now I may have to read this one because I don't know if you can see it. Now, what it says is Rick and Robin drowned in Hawaii. Their last name is drowned. When you read it, it seems like Rick and Robin drowned, that they died while they were in Hawaii. No, they did not die. Their last name is drowned. Rick and Robin drowned are vacationing in Hawaii. I think that's it. Is that it? All right. Those are funny wedding names. That's always funny to look at those. And believe me, I had to filter them. There's some stuff in there that I can't do on Sunday morning. 4. So number 4 is God created marriage for the perfection of our character. Created marriage for the perfection of our character. Marriage is where we learn to be unselfish, loving, caring, all of the godly qualities God wants us to develop are nurtured in a good Christ-centered marriage. So in Proverbs 18:1, it says, it's selfish and stupid to think only of yourself and to sneer at people who have sense. Even if your spouse isn't a Christian, they're still the number one tool God uses to make you like Himself, because He uses marriage to make you holy, not just happy. Now listen to this. You'll get this as Christians. You will find happiness in your pursuit of holiness. The more giving, serving, sharing you are in the relationship, the more happy you'll be. If your only goal in marriage is to be happy, you will always be chasing happiness like a butterfly, and it will always be just beyond your grasp, the elusive butterfly of happiness. This is Romans 12:9. And the advice that he gives here, this is not a marriage context, but it's good advice for marriage. Romans 12:9 says, love sincerely, be devoted to each other like a loving family, excel in showing respect for each other. So, what have I, Bruce, personally learned about love in marriage? For me, it has come down to two things. I have learned two things. Number one, these are profound. Love takes out the garbage without being asked.
Amen.
That's a deep one. And the second thing I've learned is love puts up the dishes without being asked. Those are the two things I've learned. If that disappointed you, I'm sorry. That's all I have.
I think those are great comments.
So, God created marriage for the perfection of our character. Then number 5 is God created marriage as the building block for society. God created marriage as the building block for society. And of course, nowadays, when we say marriage, you're going to assume I mean the traditional marriage. Marriage is the foundational block of every nation, every state, every culture, every community, and every church. And the more marriage is devalued, the more a nation morally declines. Now, it may not happen overnight. It may take decades. It may take centuries. In the case of Egypt, it could take 2,700 years. But I came across this quote, and I'd like to share it with you. This is about Roman history. It says, first, at the bottom, as it were, of Roman society, and forming its ultimate unit, was the family. It would be difficult to overestimate the influence of this group upon the history and destiny of Rome. It was the cradle of at least some of those splendid virtues of the early Romans, and contributed so much to the strength and greatness of Rome, and that helped to give her dominion of the world. You know what that's from? A high school history textbook published in 1900. This is the kind of history textbook our students need. A textbook that not just teaches some facts about history, but it keeps the history in the moral context of what was going on at the time. In Proverbs 14:34, it says, righteousness lifts up a nation. This is true, any nation, America, any nation. But sin is a disgrace in any society. So, this last point, I saved it for last, because I believe that it is the deepest reason God created marriage. Number 6, God created marriage as a reflection of our union with Christ. This is a profoundly deep point. As a reflection of our union with Christ. In Ephesians 5, it says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, He died so that he could give the church to himself as a bride in all her beauty. In the same way, husbands should love their wives as they love their own bodies. No one ever hates his own body, but feeds and takes care of it. And that is what Christ does for his church, his body. The scripture says, a man is united with his wife, and the two become one body. This is a profound mystery, but I'm talking about Christ and the church. So each husband must love his wife as he loves himself, and each wife must respect her husband. I'm reading this and I'm thinking, oh, wait a minute, Paul. Hold your horses, Paul. I thought you were talking about marriage, husbands and wives. No. He says, I'm using marriage as a metaphor of our spiritual union with Christ and his love for his church, which is his body, his bride. This is one of those passages that is so deep, we are never, ever going to be able to get to the bottom of it. By inspiration, he said, and I think I underlined it, he said profound. It's a profound mystery. This is why in the church, and I'm just talking about the group in this room, in the church, we cannot, nor will we ever let culture redefine marriage. Amen. We must protect it, because if we don't, this illustration breaks down and begins to make no sense at all. Celebrities spend millions of dollars on weddings that are nothing more than social contracts that last less than 5 years. They don't understand the spiritual nature of the profound mystery. Now, we may not be able to get totally to the bottom of it, but you and I understand that this is a mystery that is profound, and it's wrapped up in our relationship with Jesus Christ. Nothing in society, now I'm not talking about in the church, nothing in society is encouraging you to stay married. Everything in society is encouraging you to walk out and do what is going to make you feel good. Now, there is no doubt that every marriage goes through the 4 seasons. Often, you just kind of cycle through the 4 seasons. There is springtime, when everything is fresh and new. There is summer, when everything is healthy and growing. There is fall, when things are changing. And there is winter time, when the bottom falls out. We understand, and by we I mean this congregation, we understand the nature of the imperfect world that we live in. I don't know any group of people who understands it better than we do. So maybe you were in a marriage that failed. We want you to know something. We love you, and we are very grateful for you, and we deeply appreciate what you bring to this congregation. Now, all of us, every one of us, has had experiences that have fallen short of our expectations. It's just sometimes certain experiences are more public than others. If it has to do with the relationship, it may be a little more public. It has to do with some type of a law violation, it may be a little more public. You may have lost $50,000 in an investment, but nobody knows about it, because it's more of a private thing. So all of us have experiences that fall short of our expectations. I'm so sorry, but it's an imperfect world. and people are imperfect. I wanted to think about, I was thinking of something to end with, so positive, so, woo, positive. Okay. Not long. I just wanted something to be one sentence, just something super positive, because that's what I want you to walk out here thinking about. As a Christian, now listen to me, as a Christian, don't be afraid of marriage. Be willing to do the hard part, because the good part is so much better knowing you did the hard part instead of giving up. I don't know if that makes any sense. So I'm going to end with a quote from none other than Zsa Zsa Gabor. Zsa Zsa Gabor is going to be turning 100 next year. She's 99. She had 9 husbands, divorced 7 of them. And this is her quote, and she knows a little something about men. A man in love is incomplete until he's married, then he's finished. So, thank you for your attention. We're going to talk about, next week we're going to talk about the family and how we can keep our families strong, morally strong. So I hope you'll join me next week. Steve, oh, there you are, brother. Great, great. I'm still thinking about the Zsa Zsa Gabor quote. So we're going to sing an invitation, and if you will stand, if you have a particular need, please let us know what it is as we sing.